Hi. For those of you that know me, you know that my name is Joan Jack. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why I don't think there's any democracy in Indian country. There's no democracy in Indian country because the system imposed by the Indian Act is pretends to be democratic. But if you look at democracy around the world, one of the fundamental principles of a democracy is that there's an official opposition. And in Indian country, there's no official opposition. There's just an elected chief and council. And in some communities, there are hereditary structures that still exist that tend to form and be characterized as an opposition, which is not even accurate at all. One of the principles of democracy is that you actually have a responsibility to disagree. Like if you think that those in the lead are doing something that they shouldn't be doing and it's affecting you and other people in your community, you have a responsibility to say something. That's how democracy is supposed to work. And in the Canadian state, for example, there's the leading political party, and then there's always an official opposition. And then the opposition's job is theoretically to keep those in the lead honest, focused on serving the people. In Indian country, though, there's no opposition. There's only those that are elected. So how are you supposed to change anything? How are you supposed to point out that if you have a different point of view? So what ends up happening is you get characterized as the bitchy band member, or, oh God, there she goes again. She's never happy, like I am so done with that kind of BS. And then the other thing that's happening these days is that if you complain or you disagree with leadership or the staff, then you're characterized as laterally violent. Oh, she's so angry. If people are not happy, it's because what you're doing isn't what they need. What happens is that their voices get silenced and we get marginalized. It's like Jello, you push it and it just pops out somewhere else. So if you try to silence the people, they're going to find another way to voice their opinions. This is a bit of a rant, but I just had to say that. Like, I'm so tired of there being no way to disagree with dignity with those that are elected to serve. And the other thing that's happening and been happening for years is that, there's so much corruption and there's so much abuse of power and all of that. As a general statement, in a democratic country like Canada, there are political parties. So people align themselves with Conservatives, NDP, Liberals, the Green Party, Independents, whatever. They line up and they say, I support that point of view. That process also doesn't exist in Indian country. So what tends to happen is that we align ourselves in our blood families. And then that is characterized as nepotism and favoritism. Who anywhere supports somebody in leadership that isn't there to help them? So I don't know if you can relate to any of this, but I'm just so fed up. And every time that you try to talk about accountability, you're marginalized, you end up with no job, you end up with no housing repairs, with no water, you end up with no sewer delivery, pump out you. There are consequences for disagreeing with anybody in chief and council or on staff. So people tend to turn the need to disagree, the need to have a voice, they turn it inside. Some people cope with that by drinking and drugging. Some people turn to crime. I've heard people say, I could never get hired by my band. No wonder they're drug dealers. No wonder they're bootleggers. They never get a chance, or that kind of thinking starts to happen. I'm also fed up with all bunch of meetings talking about what I did my share of that. But I live in the community, whether it's here in Atlin or in Barrens. That's the only places I've really ever lived. In the community, when there's really no way to disagree, you end up being forced to manipulate power and learn how to be manipulative. And that's just not healthy at all. I just wish there was some way that we could develop governance systems and processes where we welcomed those with a different opinion and we weren't threatened. What ends up happening is that people who are not qualified or capable of leading end up in leadership. I got scared just now, totally offending a whole bunch of leaders. My intention is to say, you need to really have something more to offer the people than your own self-interest. You have to know why you're there. And you have to be there for everyone, not just yourself and those people who vote for you. But I'm just so tired of the rhetoric. Rhetoric is a fancy way for saying, you're blowing smoke up people's rear end. The best people for the job should get the job. Whatever. I'm a free bee, baby. And I can say what I want because this is Canada. And, you know, if I've said anything that offends you, bring it on. Let's have a talk about it. I don't think conflict's bad. I think not moving through conflict and pretending conflict doesn't exist is bad. Anyways, I'm so sick and tired of having no recourse when unfair things are done on the res that hurt young people, that hurt elders. People are dying, and not from COVID. They're killing themselves slowly with drugs and alcohol because they're hopeless. So we need to change. I feel better. All right, good night, everyone.